finally that day has come, right? Yeah.
Finally, I managed to sit you down. Yeah. I'm so happy. I'm so glad.
Let's see how many times that we need to sit down to finish it off.
No, I think
Yeah.
all the time, something that I've felt was that when we just generally have casual conversation, I sometimes feel like, oh shit, it would have been nice if somebody recorded this
Yeah,
conversation.
I know.
Because we go out of bounds and we think
True,
about so many things.
true,
And
true.
so I think here we are. It's time for us to have
Yes.
unfiltered
Unfiltered
conversations.
conversation. Yeah.
And welcome you guys to another edition, the episode number 2 for Tech After Work with Alagan. And here we have none other than Mangala Perera, the partner and chief operating officer of Rootcode, one of my greatest mentors for more than a decade, somebody whom I look up to, somebody whom I have learned a great deal of leadership, business, and just being a man in life. So Mangala, let's start off. One of the things that I really think is interesting that when we talk, what you tell me, was that the fact that you have been in this industry doing what you do for like 25 years now, right? Sometimes it baffles my head, like 25 years. There was 25 years before there was no tech industry in Sri Lanka, right? 25 years before, like this is what, late 90s. There were no tools, but we have internet was just barely at its infancy, right? How was it back then?
To be honest, like when we were in the uni, nowadays when they were doing A levels,
Yeah.
they're thinking like I joined the IT industry, I want to become a software engineer sort of. So until we, finish our second year, we didn't know that,
There was an IT industry.
IT industry. So that
Was it even called IT industry back then? Or what?
I can't even remember, to be honest.
Something to do with computers.
Yes. But we had computer as a subject, and
Right.
we were doing programming and so on. But
Right.
industry hasn't picked up at
What
that
kind
time.
of programming were you doing back then?
Pascal and Fortran. Yeah.
Must have been very difficult, right?
Exactly. Yes. COBOL.
COBOL.
And Java was there, to be
Java
honest.
was there.
Java
Okay.
was there.
Okay, early
I think that
versions.
is the that is probably the only language, Java and C++.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. And you were part of IFS, like after university you joined IFS as one of their early employees. IFS is a massive ERP system, one of the well-rated, loved product internationally. And like when you joined, like how do you build things when you don't have like frameworks? Like right now we are so spoiled, right? To be frank,
I know.
if you want to build something on front end, you have enough tools, enough frameworks. Libraries are so mature, like you just call functions, right?
Sure.
How was it building a product before technology got to where it is now, like programming?
Yeah. I think the industry and the technology frameworks, the resources were really limited at Alagan. I know that when we joined the industry as fresh graduates, it's completely different scenario compared to what you see today. Like when fresh graduates are joining companies now, they're looking for tech leads to architects to mentors. Back then there were no architects, there were no tech leads. You need to figure it out by yourself. So,
But I remember in the early stages when I met you, I think like 12 years, whatever, before, I was going through your LinkedIn. And one of the interesting things that I saw that I couldn't believe is you were a software engineer. And in like 3 years, you're a software architect. I'm like, how did this guy, like, it takes like 10 years to become an architect, right?
Yeah, I know. I got the same question from my daughter as well. Like, when she was looking for internships, I asked her, okay, have a good LinkedIn profile. So obviously she went to my profile and looked at, and she asked the same question. So what happened back then was that there were no architects, there were no team leads. You bunch of fresh graduates joining the industry, so you should deliver things, like you need to figure it out by yourself. So that is the best thing in scale up organizations as well. Even now, like if you don't have those people, then you need to figure it out by yourself. And then so we haven't had that luxury, so then we became our own team leads and our own architects. And so when you do things, things will naturally follow you.
Right.
That's true for today as well. Like, if you take ownership, if you step up and, stretch yourself and do things what you need to do. So then, because I was doing the architect role for some times in organization, I realized, okay, this guy is anyway doing it. So why don't we give this designation? Yeah. So as I said, at that time, it's a couple of fresh graduates from the university, and we were a few people. And so, as you said, that it's a massive ERP system.
What was like the biggest technical challenge you faced at the time?
Yeah, that was, we are talking about 1998, right?
My God, I was
Yes.
what? I was, oh my God, I was 70 years old.
That was during the dot-com bubble. And there was
I was barely learning to put my shorts.
I know. And that was during the dot-com bubble, and everyone was thinking like, web is going to be the thing. There was a sort of hype. I know now it's not a hype, like, web became everything. But at that time it was actually a hype. But everyone thought like, to win the market and to stay in the game, all products should have web version. So the initial challenge we got to Sri Lanka was to have exact replica of a web version of their desktop application, which was built for many years, like a couple of millions of lines of code. And browsers were not mature enough. At that time, there were two browsers which were competing with each other: Netscape, which died, Netscape, and Internet Explorer. Microsoft.
The big daddy.
Yes, the big guy. But they were fighting with each other to get the market share. But browsers were very, sort of immature, like you
Very
can't.
immature, I can imagine.
And JavaScript is evolving, and then we got the task to have a replicate version of the ERP product in web. And no UX designers, and you can imagine
industrial user experience, right?
There is nothing. And also, we also don't know how people use browsers. They used to, search for things and more static web pages, information. So how do you build a system in web, which exactly gives you same functionality as desktop application? So that was the challenge. And then product owners took easy approach, do exactly the same thing in web. Even though, because we don't know how web users will use it.
You don't have a benchmark either, right? What's
Exactly.
the right thing to do?
So having all these functionalities, because if you take desktop users, they have the rich applications. How do you have that richness in a web application was the main challenge, to be honest. And no frameworks, so you need to, basically work with plain HTML and no CSS, JavaScript and those things. The main challenge, the biggest challenge we had was how do we have asynchronous calls? At that time, I know if you talk to web developers today, synchronous calls is very basic thing. If you even do a course like, in a couple of hours that you learn how to do a synchronous calls, how do you update the web page without refreshing and so on. But that was the main challenge at that time. There was no way to do it. And then we thought, we can use applets. I think you know what, it's an old word, but applets, yes, applets is a sort of a sandbox in the browser, which runs, you need to have JRE, and it's a plugin. So we thought, okay, that's a way to do it, because then you can have Java, because Java was sort of a mature language, and
Right.
JavaScript was not. Then if you can have Java running in your browser, so maybe that's the easy way to do it. Then we thought, okay, it's a really good
Sure.
finding. Then we used Java applets to do all these asynchronous calls, and we thought, okay, architecture was done. Like, we are pretty sure about what we have done. So eventually, applets became a problem, because it comes with a lot of vulnerabilities, security vulnerabilities, and so on. And I can remember the day that we got to know that browsers will eventually stop supporting applets. At the same time, some customers already said that I don't want our employees to have plugins running in their browsers.
Because of the vulnerability.
Exactly.
And until now, like, everything you built was on top of...
I mean, all asynchronous, like,
everything asynchronous.
Yes, all data validations to when people enter, or when users enter employee ID, getting all this employee information without refreshing the browser,
And by
filling it
now,
nicely.
this is already a massive system, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a massive system. And then, I think you also had an engineering background.
Yeah.
The day that sometimes you feel like you're a piece of shit, when you realize, massive part of your architecture
It's not
is
useful.
a wrong choice.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had that feeling, to be honest. Like, those are the weeks of February, a month probably. We had, like, it's a sleepless nights. You realize, like, this is your solution is not going to work soon, and you need to come up with something. Yeah, that was an interesting story. Like, then no Stack Overflow. You can't go there and tell, like, I have a problem. No ChatGPT, and no mentors, no seniors, and so we were like,
there were no
few
online
people.
forums,
So we really wanted to figure out how to come out of it. Right. So then we were searching. No Google either at that time. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yes,
even Google wasn't popular. I don't even know.
I'm talking about 98, 99, right?
Yeah.
So then we found a hack. The browsers are having some sort of functionality to read XML files in the server without refreshing the browser.
Right, okay.
So, that when it comes to eureka moment, there are two types of eureka moments. One is when you found the solution. The other one is when you sniff the solution. You feel like, okay, that can be the way to go.
Right. And that's a good feeling.
That's a good feeling. Yeah. So then we found, like, okay, why not using that XML reading functionality to do this asynchronous call. Then we realized it's different from Netscape to Internet Explorer, because initially we found the way to do it in a Netscape browser. Then, but solution is not complete until you find something for Internet Explorer. Then we found something similar. You can't
tell your customers use
exactly.
Netscape only.
Exactly. So then we found, something similar, we can do the same.
Sure.
So then we completely replaced that applet architecture with those XML reading things. And then I think it is in early 2000, Ajax came.
Right.
If you go into why Ajax has X is, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, they were using that architecture. So
that you built.
It's exactly same thing that we used at that time. So those are the nice feeling when you do it by yourself. Of course, at one point you realize,
imagine that years before Ajax came, you have figured out that architecture and you have built it inside
how to do that. So those are the nice stories. But at the same time, what we learned at that time was like you need to figure it out how to do it. That at the same time, you screw up things as well, like without knowing.
And it's a humbling experience to be in a place where you don't have enough help and you don't know what you are doing, so that you figure out solutions. Because I remember, like, nowhere close to your experience, but when I was in like college and I started this company, I mean, of course, started with Singify as a AI kind of mobile app. Like in 2014, the mobile frameworks were not, there was no React, there was no Flutter. So we had to build things on native Android and iOS. AI, there was no, like, whatever that you see, TensorFlow to, and nothing was there. So we had to, every problem that looks very small now was a massive mathematical problem and a programming problem those days. But that humbles us. I mean, I enjoyed my share as a programmer, and then I think that experience was lovely.
Yeah.
So you were like 25th or 30th employee
Yeah.
at IFS, and then then now it's like thousands of people, and also like you grew from like an engineer to architect to manager and all the way director, and then VP software operations. That also means hiring would have been one of your biggest areas, right? Hiring, training people, coaching people. So I can see a lot of talent related problem when an industry doesn't even exist, right? So students don't know, universities don't know, they don't necessarily train students, and students also don't know whether there's a future in it, right? So how did you handle this whole talent problem back then?
At that time, right?
Yeah.
Because having an industry and also having right talent pool is always a chicken and egg
Because
story.
now we take it for granted,
Yeah,
because
now we take-
everybody wants to
I
work
know,
in tech,
I know,
right?
I know, I know. Because at that time, even students they didn't know that there is such industry. So again, like we can't ask companies to come here invest. We will give you right people in 4 years time. It's not going to happen. And also you can't really have university courses and promote it among students, saying like you do this course and in 2-3 years industry will come, you will get a job, right? So at that time what has happened was that industry really picked up, and it picked up faster than we thought.
Right.
And to be honest, we haven't had enough university courses to get undergraduates or graduates, those who have done programming or IT. So then industry realized that we need to work together with the academia to build this pipeline. I think that is one of the reasons. If you take even today, IT industry is one of the industries, those who are working very closer to the universities, those who take the ownership of building right talent pool, because we knew even at that time academia is our university system is the heart of
That's
the industry.
a very interesting point, because in Sri Lanka, for example, especially, the collaboration between academia and the IT industry is really tight, and it's really good. Even we are delivering like one whole AI module for one of the universities right now. And that doesn't happen in other industries. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
it's because of the need they have
exactly,
to
exactly.
right?
Because we saw the potential in this industry. At the same time, we saw the risk of not having right talent pool at the right time. So
Were they
otherwise,
supportive?
industry, companies will divert to somewhere else. Vietnam too. Of course, India was there even at that time, fighting with us. And then I should, talk about some university lecturers, those who were, thinking out of the box. While we were talking about how to build the talent pool, so we all agree that we can't wait for a new intake and another 3-4 years to get those people out. And then what we thought was, so why don't we have conversion programs? Even because we have a lot of physical science degrees, those who are from maths background, those who can actually catch up with technology. So then industry and universities work together to have those conversion programs. And those who have done physical science degree, even though they haven't done anything in programming, like 6 months conversion programs. And
this is like after they finish their degree, or
after they finish their degree, because we had quite a lot of graduates in the industry, but they are not IT ready. So then those programs, in one program I remember 30 students from my parallel batch from the university, those who haven't done IT, they went through that conversion program, and 25 out of 30 were hired from IFS, and one of them are now at the director level and architect level as well. So that was the time that we realized you can convert, smart people into any engineering track, including IT. So that is the start of the working together with universities. And then once the industry picked up and everyone got the attention towards
and now, of course, the world kind of knows Sri Lanka as a high-end, high-quality tech destination, right? So it becomes easier because we have great examples of great consulting firms, great products coming out of Sri Lanka. Even though we are very small, like for the size of who we are, I think we are doing a lot more in that. But back then, like, we were not even known, right? And it must have been and we had a lot of other problems, right?
I know. Those days we were known for cricket. Thanks to Arjun and the team, they know that we are good with the bat and ball. If they know cricket, but then if you take most of the promotion from Sri Lanka, basically targeting tourists, so very beautiful, nice people plucking tea to, fishermen. So you never see any promotions about our innovation to engineering skills, so anything. And a small island, third world country, and also unfortunately we had that civil war. Almost all news, whenever you hear about Sri Lanka, it's about bomb blast, even bomb blast in the capital and so on. So it was a big challenge for us to prove rest of the world that we are a tech destination. We have really smart, talented engineers, those who can, compete and sometimes even better than, some part of the world. So that was the challenge. I think we all got 25 years ago, proving to that part of the world that we are very good when it comes to engineering skills as well. Yeah.
And I've spoken to some of the people from like the West and of course Sweden who came in, and I've spoken to some of your friends and your ex-colleagues as well who have become my friends over time. One of the things that they highlight when I asked them, like, why did you guys go to Sri Lanka, right, was that they really liked the people. Is that the same thing that you think, like the people and the work ethics?
Exactly. I think initially the reason why some companies started to come to Sri Lanka is, I think, mainly cost benefit. But eventually they realized it's not only the cost advantage, it's about the quality of the people and also their attitude towards work. IT industries, whatever said and done, it's we have some sort of pressure. So you need to have people, those who are resilient, right? So I mean, just think about, like, when your solutions are not working, if you get a high severity issue from a customer, I mean, you need to work days and nights to come out of it. So for that, you need to have people, those who are dedicated, at the same time resilient. Apart from the engineering skills, I think we need to have those attributes as well. So what I have seen during last 25 years is, our talent pool is, it's a mix of engineering skills, at the same time really good attitudes towards work and taking ownership, and I mean, they want to always prove that they do the right thing, and it's a natural thing from them. So I think now why we if I put it like this, I think industry came here for the cost advantage 25 years ago, but the industry stayed here because of the quality of the work that we produce, not really the cost advantage.
I've felt the same thing in many instances, because we at times take over projects, even rescue projects from like consulting firms in like big countries around us, our neighbors, and they are definitely cheaper than us. We are not necessarily cheap, right, compared to them, but still companies, businesses come to us, and I think the more than the cost benefit. It's just the quality and also ownership our engineers take as well, right? That's something that
Yeah.
um, I think our engineers are naturally resilient, but also Sri Lankans as people, I think um, we have a very high work ethic,
Yes.
and I think that makes
Yeah.
um,
I think one of them is collaboration.
right.
I think if you talk to any customer or any company who worked with Sri Lankan engineers, you can one thing in common what you can hear is that the way that they collaborate, they eventually becoming part of you, and there is no we and them feeling between us and the anyone, like it can be a company or a customer or partner, regardless of what, like when people start to work with Sri Lankan engineers, they becoming part of them, right? So
Right.
that is a unique
I'm sure you might have heard this. I've heard a lot from our Nordic customers uh, that it's weird. It's sometimes unbelievable that they consider Sri Lanka to be culturally close to their culture, like Swedish
uh,
culture,
tr-
for example, than most of our other countries. Even though there are starking differences in how we do, right? What do you think? Have you observed that? What do you think that makes them feel like there's a cultural similarity?
yes, I think the I mean one main thing in I think if you take Scandinavians and Sri
Sure.
Lankans, by nature nice people,
Yeah, they are.
and I mean you don't hurt anyone,
Yeah.
you're very, at the same time I think humbleness is also there, and less ego. Those are the things I think which really go hands in hand with
Right.
Scandinavian Nordic culture uh,
Hmm.
with Sri Lanka. Yeah.
Hmm. That's probably why there has been historically successful collaborations between Scandinavian firms and Sri Lankan firms. And even
Sure.
for us,
Yes.
Scandinavia is our primary market. Over the years, it has grown. It's very interesting because I see, I mean, we have done business in like a lot of countries, like I think 30 plus countries by now. But over the years, we have kind of concentrated and consolidated more into Nordics and North America. Um, but the cultural similarity that we have and the ease of how easy it is to work with Scandinavians from a Sri Lankan aspect is very interesting. But also, I see that, like for example, with the United States, I see even countries like Brazil and India, they have a much easier collaboration in terms of like tech collaboration, but it doesn't work the other way. So I think it's a lot to do with how we are as people and how
True.
we
True.
approach
True.
things. So one of the things that you have been doing over the years is coaching young leaders, right? Because I've heard like numerous people telling me because of Mangala, I have grown into this, right? I've heard people telling me, including me, right? I mean, even the kind of subtle guidance and mentorship that you in between lines you have been telling me like over more than a decade. Um, it's super powerful. I don't know whether you realize how powerful the impact you make in people, but like also the generations are changing, right? From like those days to millennials to now Gen Z. How is it coaching? How has coaching young leaders evolved over time? Because you have been doing it for a long time.
True. True. One thing is, Alagan, I think since we have been working, and also we have been talking to each other for a
Sure.
long period. By nature, I think I don't give big respect to number of years people lived.
Hmm.
I think we need to respect about who they are and their capabilities. I think organization should do that as well, because in my career I have seen 20 years experience people work as juniors, and at the same time I have seen interns, those who are working as seniors. So I think the when we look at them through what they are capable at the same time how they work, their work ethics and so on. So they earn the respect from me, to be honest, and then they deserve more, right? So I have some scenarios, I promoted very young people to the manager level, and in their teams they you know they got people with 20 plus years experience, right? So then if you can build the confidence in them, and at the same time, I always use the word that fly beside them.
Right.
And you can't throw them to the deep end and wait for them to survive. You can't. But at the same time, they should feel like they did it. But at the same time, it's pretty much same as parenting.
Right.
You give them the confidence, but at the same time you are flying beside them. And then young leaders are now coming from different generations. I really don't want to label people, but since the world is talking about millennials and Gen Z, that is why I'm talking about. But I never label people as millennials and Gen Z. But I see there are a lot of beautiful things in them, in those generations. I know sometimes people complain, especially our generation is complaining when they complain about millennials and Gen Z. They talk about different things that they don't like in them. But that's always, there is saying called other side of the stick. Meaning that, there are things that you appreciate in them, but there are things that you don't like in them, but it's the same stick.
Right.
One good example is they don't care about status quo. They will break rules. I usually say rules. Rules is my own term for bullshit rules. They just exist because they were there.
Rules.
And
That's a nice
so
way.
if you have young leaders reporting to you from those generations, I mean, of course you can keep complaining they are not loyal, you can't tell things for them to do, they might question you, and all these are coming because they are very open. And if you talk about the context rather than control, they will understand you. But you can't tell, do it, because I have been doing that. It worked for me. I mean, those are the places that even you lose your respect from them, because they don't care. They don't care rules. If you just talk about status quo, they pick it's a status quo. They know that okay, it worked for you, but do you think that it is working now? And the other way as well, sometimes we as those who lived longer than them, we probably burn our hands and we don't want to do it, but probably now it's a different situation. It might work now. So what I have seen in the young leaders from those generations, I don't want to label again, so they are very open for challenges. They want to take risk. Of course, they are thinking out of the box. That is why they don't respect status quo. So those are the reasons why you see the other side of the sticks, the things that you don't like in them. They will not respect rules in the organization. They will try to change things. They will not buy anything if you say that is how we have been doing. And also, I mean, they will not respect things for the titles, but you need to earn the respect from them. I mean, it's a different thing. And also, one beautiful thing with them is they, for some reason, I don't know how, compared to our generations, they don't believe there is one way of living. And they are okay with any diversity as long as their colleagues are working together towards one goal. So if you want to really build organization with right diversity, with right mix of people, diversity is not only gender, it's a big spectrum of things. I think having leaders from those generation will definitely help you to build these kind of cultures within the organization where anyone can be themselves as long as they are working together towards one goal. And that is why the organization should identify their core values. You need to have some similarities. At the same time, it should be like rainforest, any different type of species can
And that's
grow
what
their
makes
own
it-
way and shine and contribute, right? So the one thing I really like young leaders, especially from those generations, they are very open, and they don't have rule books, to be honest, and they respect people for who they are. And if you can collect them into one common thing towards one goal, they will go together. So that could be probably the reason that why I like young leaders. And
the funny thing, when I think about it, I think equal to your experience, you also have a lot of qualities that makes you partially Gen Z, partially millennial as well. Because
I take
you-
it
you
as
don't
a
like rules
compliment, to be
either.
honest.
You question me. We talk about breaking rules all the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We don't do things because it's one of the things that okay, now I'm going into my personal story. One of the things when I met you for the first time, like I don't know, 10, 12 years before, it I was kind of fangirling when I met you, right? Because you were like already a director at IFS. I was a like computer science student, and I'm like, okay,
You were early 20s and I was in early 40s, right? Yeah.
you're like double my age at the time, right?
I know.
One of the things that stood out for me and that made me really feel fascinated, was that for your experience and what you have learned, you had zero ego. You didn't care about rules, you didn't care about status quo. I remember you came to me and you asked, Alagan, can you evaluate my speech? Can you mentor my speech or something? And I was like, what? I'm like, Mangala is coming to me and asking. I'm like, nobody, a 20-year-old kid.
I think that goes the same thing that I said earlier. Like, even though I was 40, whatever the title I have, I joined Toastmasters, and then I was new to Toastmasters, and I have seen your speeches. So for me, like, it doesn't matter whether you're 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. I mean, you were speaking better than me, Alagan, at that time. So then I thought, okay, why not talking to Alagan to evaluate my first icebreaker speech? Yeah.
I don't know whether you know that makes people love you a lot.
I
Yeah.
know.
Because it's a fascinating quality. And then the balance that creates in your life, in the way you approach things, I think that's what made you here, I would say. Yeah.
And also, I think since we are talking about organizations and how to build high performing organizations, so one thing that we need to have in our culture, this is something that I always emphasize when we do inductions. The best career advice I can give you to anyone is forget your designation. I tell it a lot to interns, basically. So if you take the way that we treat interns in Rootcode, we don't treat interns as interns as long as they don't treat themselves as interns. So
and we have great examples.
Exactly.
Like,
yes.
You even see Dhoni was an intern, but less than 3 years back, and
Sure.
she's now leading the whole marketing team.
Yeah. So if interns can forget their designation and take challenges and grow, beautiful thing can happen in their career. And when you climb the ladder, if you forget your designation and be humble, then you will learn from others as well. I think it goes to us as well, like those who are at the same level. If you forget your designation and be humble, and so I think if you need to build a high performing organization, this is one of the things that you need to have in an organization. Like people should not wear their titles in any conversation.
As simple as this sounds, a lot of organizations and leaders forget this.
Exactly.
I don't think they get this clearly. And okay, I'm gonna ask you a very funny question. So you were successful, right? You were an engineer. You were one of the first 25 people of an organization that went 1,000 plus. You are at the helm now. You're like on the top. You're a VP. Why the hell did you leave that and join Rootcode when we were like barely a startup with I think 40, 50 people at the time? Why would you do that?
You convince me, right? This is something that you were always telling me every time when we were having drinks, like, Mangala, this is time for you to play the second inning. Come, let's do it together.
You think I convinced you over time?
Out of jokes. I think the real reason was Alagan. I mean, when I was in late 20s, early 20s, sort of, always you think about what do you want in your life, right? So I think we all know that the end of the day is all what you want, right? Nothing more than that. And then you can't learn it from books or speeches or anything. You need to figure out
Yeah.
what do you want. So when I was in 20s, there's an old saying. Once again, there is so one disclaimer. There are 1,001 right ways of living. I'm talking about just what I want. Like, it's not about what other people should do. There's a nice old saying: if you are a man, you should raise a kid, write a book, and plant a tree. Kind of. So when I heard that, I was thinking, okay, if I'm what I want, like, obviously I want to raise kids. I did that, and then I want to have few more things in my list. Then I thought, like, build a company, build a product. But then I was, I found a job and I wanted to get married, and I was in the corporate rat race. Then I completely forgot that dream. Of course, but if I look back, there's another reason why I forgot that dream was that I was an entrepreneur, not entrepreneur. Entrepreneur.
And we need those people as
Exactly.
well. Right?
Entrepreneurs are the employees, those who give their blood, sweat, and tears to the organization, thinking this is my company, and they have the entrepreneur mindset, but they do everything. Only thing is
they run the show. End of the day,
they run the show. But I think every entrepreneur wants entrepreneurs. So because of that, I thought that I did it, because I was thinking, like, it's because an entrepreneur is also enjoying the same journey as entrepreneurs. Only thing is they are taking less risk than entrepreneur. So while I was talking, so I realized, shit, I missed the train when I was 40. Why can't I, get into the next train? So I met you. I have seen that you are doing things really right. At the same time, every time when we had conversation, even after a couple of beers, and we talk about real ourselves, and then we saw that we have same core values. Our objective is to build a better organization rather than any short-term goals or anything. Then I thought, okay, I shouldn't miss the second train, even though I am 50. So if I want to, have that tick, becoming an entrepreneur, build a company, build a product again, or play the second inning, so you should be the one to join with.
And I think I have this funny, like the Steve Jobs moment where he convinced the CMO of Coca-Cola, like, do you want to spend your life selling sweet water, or come with me and change the world? I have that quite a few moments of telling you, you just want to be this, or do you want to come and have a second innings that's fantastic, that leaves a legacy bigger than you? I think I might have really convinced you.
Yeah, and also I think this is one of the best decisions that I have taken as well. Right. Becoming a Rootcode, looking back, the way that we have been growing, and also the nice people, talented people in general, Rootcoders, those who are around us. I think so.
And we have grown so much after you came, right? I think I can't imagine getting to where we are today without, like, having you in the journey for the last few years. I don't think, I think it would have been almost impossible. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses too. And that I think we have a great way of complementing our skill set. I think that's kind of making this partnership grow really well. Great. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you was about your running. Because
running.
You didn't even run anything until you were like, what, 40?
I haven't done any sport. I can remember when I was in the school, when we have the March fast for the sports day,
Yeah.
I used to tell my mom to give me a letter saying that I have wheezing. Because of that, I shouldn't be there.
Right.
So I was, that sort of a guy. And I think when I was 42, 43, kind of, when you think about your life and then you realize, body is also a beautiful thing. Like it's not there to carry your head here and there, but it's you can do so much of thing with your body. And also it's inevitable, like, if you don't take care of your body, and then it doesn't matter what you do, right? And also I think Fitbit used nice motto, which really gave me a different perspective about the life. So Fitbit has had a motto. I don't know whether they are using it any longer. It says, "Life is what you make it. Fitness is how you live it. Every beat counts." So then I thought, like, I should do something. So then I tried different things, including kite surfing. That was one of the disaster things that I did. But eventually I found, okay, maybe running is a good thing. I started walking, and then eventually walking became boring. And then we started internal challenge among my former colleagues.
Okay.
Those who are reaching a maximum kilometers end of the month, they go to the leaderboard. Since I haven't had enough time to cover by walking, then I thought, like, why can't I run, walk, run, walk, run? But at that time I didn't know that is the best way to bring couches to run 5K. Like, that is the
Right.
Even if you look at the actual program, it's run, walk, run. But I did that because I'm competitive, to be honest. Yeah. So then eventually I became a runner.
And now you have like half marathons in like many countries. Like I saw you were like Gothenburg, you were in Bangkok.
I think running gave me life lessons as well, especially long distance running, because long distance running will teach you a lot of things. One is consistency is everything. When you do those races like 21 kilometers, you can see a lot of people, those who are passing you at first few kilometers, and then you pass them again in 15 kilometers. So then it's about rabbit and tortoise stories. That is what we learn when we were kids from Aesop's fables, like, So consistency is everything. The other thing is, it doesn't matter how fast you run, always there are people running faster than you, and it's not about competing with them, it's about competing with yourself, right? And also every time when I turn back, you can see people are running behind us as well, like, you can learn a lot of life lessons by running. Yeah, that is probably why I like running. Yeah.
Lovely. Such an amazing conversation, Mangala. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that I brought you and sat you down and spoke in front of the camera with this. And I hope you enjoy the conversation too.
Thanks for having me, Alagan. I really enjoyed. I think,
Lovely. And hope you guys enjoyed too. I'll see you guys in another episode of Tech After Work.